Iran is panicking because Saudi Arabia has opened its doors to about 8,000 Pakistani soldiers. JF-17 fighter jets, drones, and air defense right in the Gulf, while Tehran tries to pretend it still controls the pace of the crisis. This Thursday, May 21, 2026. What matters is not just the arrival of foreign troops on Saudi territory, but the political message behind it. The Arabs are preparing for a possible ground invasion to defend bases, borders, ports, energy facilities, and any sensitive point that Iran or its militias might try to threaten in Saudi Arabia. They didn't call Pakistan for symbolism. They called because they know the war could enter a new phase. And when a nuclear power puts soldiers on the board next to Riyadh, the Iranian regime loses the freedom to intimidate without reckoning with a stronger response. And now, the question is simple. Will Iran still take the risk after the Arabs turned fear into real military mobilization? Is Saudi Arabia just defending itself, or is it already preparing the ground for a land war against the Iranian axis? Does the dictatorship still have the strength to intimidate the Gulf after the Arabs brought a nuclear power into the crisis? I'll tell you all about that in a moment, but right now you'll want to subscribe to the channel to stay well informed with real-time information and the best journalistic quality you've ever seen. With the standard of credibility, Milson Alves, the movement didn't just fall from the sky. Saudi Arabia had been observing drones crossing the region, bases on alert, and militias aligned with Iran trying to keep up the pressure. Even during the pause in major operations on May 17, 2026, the Saudi Ministry of Defense stated that it intercepted and destroyed 3 drones that entered its airspace that day. The episode showed why Riyadh does not want to rely solely on official statements and external promises. When a drone crosses the region and forces an air defense to act, the kingdom understands that the threat is no longer distant. It is testing entry points, routes, and weaknesses. Pakistan enters this crisis with a clear role. Islamabad didn't just send observers, advisors, or a token flag for a photo op. The reported force includes soldiers, fighter jets, drones, and the HQ-9 air defense system of Chinese origin. This package changes the significance of the military presence. A soldier on the ground serves to protect the facility, reinforce the base, secure sensitive areas, and respond if a border or strategic infrastructure is attacked. Fighter jets and air defense are used to secure the skies, and drones are used for surveillance and response. The sum of this creates a defensive ring that Tehran needs to take into account before betting on provocation. The Pakistani presence also reveals a political choice by Riyadh. Saudi Arabia is saying that it will not stand by silently at every Iranian threat, nor will it wait for the Ayatollah's regime to choose when and where to create panic. The Saudi kingdom is drawing a long-time partner closer with a large army, military experience, and a direct connection to Chinese equipment. Reuters reported that the pact allows for a much greater reinforcement, which could reach up to 80,000 Pakistani soldiers if the situation worsens. This number scares Tehran because it shows that the 8,000 soldiers may be just the first layer of a larger mobilization. Iran freaks out because this formation takes away its psychological advantage. For years, the Iranian regime has relied on indirect pressure, militias, drones, and threats against energy infrastructure to force its adversaries to back down. Now, Saudi Arabia is setting up a defense that combines foreign soldiers, aviation surveillance, and air defense. It's not a declared invasion against Iran, but it's a visible preparation to prevent an invasion, contain incursions, and respond in case the war becomes a ground war. This difference is important, but it doesn't lessen the pressure. On the contrary, it shows that Riyadh has moved on. Saudi Arabia is planning for the worst without asking Iran's permission. The attack on the Barakah nuclear plant region in the United Arab Emirates added even more weight to this interpretation. Reuters reported that drones hit the plant without any radiation leak in an unprecedented event for the Gulf Arab monarchies. Even without a nuclear disaster, the message was dangerous. If a facility of that size becomes a target, the entire Gulf security system needs to change immediately. Saudi Arabia understood this signal. The Emirates understood it too. The crisis stopped being just a dispute between Washington and Tehran and directly affected the security of the Arab nations that support a central part of the regional economy. Washington is watching this development with interest because it increases the pressure on Iran without forcing the United States to bear the entire military burden alone. Trump has already warned that he might hit harder if the Iranian regime does not accept a solution that prevents nuclear advancement. In a speech on May 20th, 2026, he said that the United States might need to hit Iran harder. While Iran talks about a proposal, Saudi Arabia receives troops. While Tehran asks for sanctions relief, the Gulf closes its airspace. While the regime tries to appear as a victim, its own threats fuel a defensive coalition around it. Pakistan's role leaves Iran in an uncomfortable position. Islamabad talks to Tehran, serves as a diplomatic bridge, and at the same time places soldiers on Saudi territory. This restricts Iran's freedom. If the regime attacks Saudi Arabia and hits Pakistani forces, it could open a crisis with a neighboring Muslim armed nation that is much harder to treat as a common enemy. Iran can threaten militias. It can step up its rhetoric against Washington. It can rail against Israel. But thinking about a direct confrontation with Pakistan is a different calculation, and that calculation does not favor the regime. Saudi Arabia also gains more room to act more firmly. With Pakistani troops protecting sensitive points, Riyadh is able to shift part of its attention to tracking drones, monitoring routes coming from Iraq, reinforcing the energy-rich east, and protecting areas in the west, where ports and logistical corridors have enormous value. The kingdom doesn't need to announce every position. It's enough to make it clear that any aggression won't find any undefended territory. This is the kind of defense that doesn't make headlines every day, but it changes the calculation of anyone planning an attack. The next step depends on Tehran. If Iran continues to use threats as a political tool, Saudi Arabia is likely to ask for more protection. And Pakistan may increase its contingent. The regional war has taken on a ground dimension. Before, Tehran factored in missiles, drones, ships, and American bases. Now it needs to factor in Pakistani soldiers on Saudi soil, JF-17 fighter jets drones, HQ-9 defense systems, and a Saudi Arabia less willing to wait for the next attack. The Gulf is warning that it doesn't want to be a hostage to Iranian fear. Trump applies pressure from above, Riyadh shields itself from within, Islamabad steps in as a shield. And Tehran discovers that each provocation can bring another force onto the board. Milson Alves, International Affairs Specialist, and my purpose is to keep you accurately informed every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the community. City of Milson Alves.